Today on the Skid Factory, we're checking out Bill's BMW 635 CSI. This is Bill's 1986 BMW 635 CSI. It's quite a sort of a rare beast around these parts anyway. Bill bought this brand new in 1988. It had sat for 2 years before it had been complianced in Australia. It was originally an M30B35. BMW guys will get cranky about that. And a Getrag 5-speed with a dogleg, which was quite a rare transmission apparently. Bill had done 300 and something thousand kilometres before he showed up at AM Auto's door back in 2012. And he talked about wanting to rejuvenate the car. Like, it was pretty worn out. It was leaking oil out of everything, and it was all pretty much old 1980s technology, albeit pretty good at the time. So Dose Vader and I came up with a plan. He told us what he wanted, and we told him what we could do to get him what he wanted. And his list of things that he wanted was quite impressive. He wanted a Turbo 6, he wanted an automatic, even though it was originally a manual, because he was sick of changing gears. He wanted a paddle shift. He wanted lots of things that were really cool, and he said, I can afford it, just do it. So we did. Bill, the owner, is 76 years old, and he reckons he's going on to 21. And as I said, he had the car since new, and he loves it. He was never going to get rid of it, and he also wanted to pass it on to either his son or his grandson, who both want it pretty badly. So it was always going to get a big birthday. When we had it at the workshop, the paint was just clear coat peeling red. It was in pretty bad shape. It had been a pretty faithful device over the years, obviously a daily driver. And so they had big plans for it. So we were a part of that. We came up with an engine and gearbox combo that he was happy with, and ECUs and that sort of thing. And it's probably going to ruin BMW lovers' days when they see the engine, but bear with us. It's a great car. Come and have a look. BMW guys, your worst nightmare. So the engine we fitted to the car is a Aristo JZS 161 2JZ variable valve timing engine. It has the original automatic transmission out of the Aristo on it, which is now controlled by an aftermarket controller, which I'll show you later. It's got the twin turbos have been removed because basically they wouldn't have fitted anyway, but they're also junk. It's got a Garrett GT3076 on it. The car's basically built to be a really nice daily driver with a lot of response. We didn't want a big turbo that was going to be laggy or anything like that. So this is about as small and responsive as it gets for a 2JZ. The mod list on this car is just enormous. I haven't seen it for a few years. As I said, it was built about 6 years ago by Miles and I at AM Auto. These cars are sort of built in a different way to a Japanese car, I guess you could say. And a lot of the original build design, we had to actually remove it all and change it. So although this looks reasonably standard, it's actually, the car's been modified significantly. It's probably one of the most modified cars I've ever done, even though it doesn't look like it. So the brake booster and everything used to be on the other side of the car. That was never going to work. So we've removed all that and actually moved everything over to this side. That's a Subaru brake booster and master cylinder. The throttle control and everything used to be on the other side of the car. That they basically converted it to right-hand drive and and it was just a series of linkages going everywhere that was operating everything on the other side of the car still. It was impressive engineering, I suppose, but it was just kind of insane at the same time. So all of that was removed, and we basically sort of re-engineered the car to be a true right-hand drive car, I suppose you could say. Everything is custom made. The radiator is all handmade. I made all that myself. The core is a Commodore core, but the tanks are handmade. So we pulled the plastic tanks off and made new tanks out of aluminium. So they all mount up to the original position. Airbox is handmade. All the cooling in the front of the car has all been replaced with all new design. So more modern design stuff, the condenser, the power steering cooler, the transmission cooler, and there's obviously an intercooler out the front there as well. This has been Bill's daily driver since about 2013 when it was finished. After it left AM Auto, the body work was done by Cameron's Body Works in Brisbane. The interior was completely retrimmed, sort of back to original leather. All those seats are all original, so it was all pretty nice in the first place. It was just worn out, so it's all leather retrim. It was done by David at Anvid Auto Trim in Brisbane. The engine management system on this car is a Haltech PS2000, which is the older, now superseded version of the Elite 2000. It's basically running the entire engine, whereas the auto is being operated by a different control unit altogether. It's got a top feed injector conversion. We just sort of modernised everything. The throttle body is a Ford throttle body, which with this different idle control on it. This engine originally comes with a primitive sort of e-throttle, which is not really easy to operate. So we normally remove them and just put a normal throttle on them. These throttles are good because they've got a simple idle control built into them. They're fairly big. I use them a lot on all sorts of conversions over the years, although I prefer e-throttle these days. The 2JZ is a pretty good fit in this the BMW. It's actually a bit smaller than the original engine. They're quite large. The sump layout and everything's correct for it. Doing the engine mounts was a bit of a pain, as I recall, just because of the location of them on the cross member. They're quite far out, a long way away from where the mounting points on the 2JZ engine are. From memory, I got Matt to come in and give me a bit of an idea, and he came up with a plan using long tubes with bolts recessed down inside them. So we got that done. It has a giant steering box in it. It's just a huge thing. So there's a little bit of clearance problems with that and the exhaust manifold that we put on it, but we just made up a shield to shield the box away from the manifold itself. So that worked out pretty well. You see the big intercooler here, there's plenty of room for that. It's a 450 by 300 by 100, I think. So plenty big enough for this engine. Have a look underneath a bit further, you can see the 3-inch stainless steel exhaust all the way through. It's got a little bit of a hit here, but you get that. It is a daily driver. It's the Aisin Auto, so it's the standard fitment behind this engine. It has a valve body change to go with the transmission controller that we used to simplify the operation of the box. It works really well. It's got an external oil filter for the auto, all braided lines going to it, and then up the front to the transmission cooler. We've got 750 IL brakes on it, so off a big limo. They work really well, all brand new OEM stuff. Heaps of brakes for this vehicle. It's obviously nowhere near the size of a 750 limousine. That's front and rear. That all just bolted on. Everything's been replaced suspension wise as well. Bushes, the whole works. Most of it was bought from Island Engineering, which is a US company that specialises in BMWs. These things got a big diff in them. It's a limo as well, which we all love, especially in the wet. Got Bilstein suspension, coilovers, that's also supplied by Island Engineering. These things have got quite an interesting rear end in them. It's basically a trailing arm setup, but they've got these sort of a link that distorts the mounting point as it goes through the stroke and corrects the sort of camber changes that you get in a trailing arm rear end like this. So yeah, some more cool stuff like this. This is a really high-tech vehicle in its day. It had a lot of nice gear in it for the time, and now it's better. We'll bring it back down and I'll show you some cool stuff on the inside of the car. So inside the car here we've got some really cool stuff. Some of my favourite bits, but also some of the most challenging parts of the build itself back in the day. The auto transmission is controlled by a PCS auto controller, which is a US built product. It works well. It was extremely difficult and challenging for us in Australia to actually get it to work well, but now that it's programmed properly, it's pretty good. One of the cool things about it is that it comes with a paddle shift option. So this is one of the things on Bill's wish list. He wanted to paddle shift his auto, and this actually is a really nice sort of CNC unit that bolts in behind any sort of Momo sort of Nardi type steering wheels. That sort of bolt pattern. It's got dual pattern, and it's also got a display screen on it there to tell you what gear you're in, which is quite cool. It's also got gear shift option as well if you don't want to use these paddles. I've actually used a Gen 4 Legacy Subaru gear shifter to shift the auto. So we can run down through that, down to drive, and then across, and it's got up and down shift on the actual stick as well as on here. So there's a lot of things, gadgets to play with, and it all integrates into the car quite well. The trimmers sort of made some custom things around here to sort of hide the fact that it's a Subaru gear shifter. But as far as operational goes, it feels factory. It's really tight. Everything works well, which is really what we were after with this car. There was never any questions about how much it would cost. It's just fill the wish list and make the car work as if it was factory. And I think we nailed it pretty well. It's a really nice vehicle and everything just works. It starts beautifully, it runs hard, it's obviously quite powerful. The shifter works, the gear shift works, the suspension works. It's a great thing, and it's a good family icon and legacy for the Williams family. And I'm sure they'll get plenty of enjoyment out of it later on. Not me though, I'm not allowed to drive it. It's too wet. Well, that's it for Bill's 635 CSI. Hope you enjoyed the look over. The boys have got to go and have a cruise in it, and Woody's got to take his kid at a playgroup, so we'll catch you next time.